Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dopefish Productions Reviewer, where we review anything that catches our fancy. Today's review is A Fishcake Guardian by YagamiNguyen. I think I said that right. Or YagamiNguyen. Uh, I think I said that right. Here's the summary. She found him on the beach of Besaid when he was on the verge of dying. She sheltered him, nursed him back to health, despite not knowing who he was. What man like him could do to repay such kindness, become her guardian, shield her from the dangers, and blast Sin's head off? It tries to go near her. Simple. That is the summary. Now, this is one of the few fanfictions that I very much enjoy. Anything doing with the Final Fantasy genre, I've always been a fan of. I've enjoyed the games all the way up until, I say, 10, and then it went straight downhill for me. The 13 was okay, um, but it wasn't the best, especially in its story department. Gameplay wise, it was one of the best. But I really loved the original 10 Final Fantasy games because the play style of the games were just more fun than modern versions of the games. They just have almost no replayability for me. I play them once and I'm probably never going to them again. FF10 has one of the better stories, not the best. I just like the characters in the story, except the main character. I liked all the side characters in the story more than any other story in the Final Fantasy games. Um, I especially like crossover fanfictions of Final Fantasy stories like this one. This story I will be giving uh, a 7 out of 10. And the only reason it's getting a 7 is because it's a very good story for what it is, but it has a lot wrong with it that could easily be addressed. But this writer stretches themselves far too thin on multiple stories, and when they go to write a chapter, they typically rush things a little bit too much, and they typically don't really spend much time thinking about future outcomes of the story and what I'm thinking, the way it feels. Now, the story is amazing in the beginning. It's like one of the best beginnings of a story you can have in this, especially one of the best beginnings this type of fan fiction can have. But as it goes on, it slowly deteriorates because he's not focusing on the story. He's spreading himself too thin, I think. Um, in the beginning, this story is perfect, but as it goes on, it slowly degrades. As I mentioned, the main problems with the story is some events move a little too fast. Even though the events in the game are moving incredibly fast itself, it just feels this world should be a little bit bigger than what the game shows you. I've always felt that way, especially in FF7 and 8. They make a huge world map that you're able to travel, and the world is much bigger than what the game shows. Um, Final Fantasy X should be that way too, but almost no writer shows that, which is sad. This writer doesn't show it either. This story is just a simple putting Naruto from Naruto into Final Fantasy X and having him alongside as an additional guardian with all his powers. Honestly, Naruto is a little too overpowered for this world, but that is okay if they do it right. Um, in the story, there are several occasions where he could have drew it out and needed a few more, uh, just a few more, freshing out on the characters a little tad more would have been nice. And also making the journey from place to place a lot longer, just to have little filler chapters of traveling, would made it even more interesting. Um, I personally think. Then there's a few other things that they could have added. Like they could have added a few more side characters, added a few more other events that would have made the world their own unique story. He could still follow the basic premise of the game and have the same characters from the game, but add a few more side characters and it would make it a lot more amazing. Um, he does add a little bit more characterization to the summons and a little characterization. He replaces one character with honestly a better character that never really had much going for her in the original game. But besides that, it is a very good story and I would highly recommend it. This is pretty much all I can talk about this story, and I will be trying to update more often after this. Um, Thank you for coming to Duckfish Productions Reviewer, and soon to be other things if I can actually figure out how to do certain things. But thank you for coming.